Okay, we're going to get started here in 1 minute. Again, just for people who just joined us, we are recording, so if you want to keep your cameras off, that is totally fine. This is for people who were not able to make the in-person or virtual, so it'll be up on the Westgate page. And for you guys to have information in case you missed anything just throughout the year. And please keep yourself muted. If you have a question, there will be time at the end to answer them. Okay, it's 7:05, so we're going to get started. I'm Andy Rosenblatt. I'm the 3-4 team lead, and we've got some other teachers here that we will introduce in 1 second. So I teach 4th grade advocacy, 4th grade language arts, 3rd grade math, and 4th grade social studies. Ms. King.
Hey, I'm Ms. King, and I teach 3rd grade advocacy, 4th grade language arts and math, and then 3rd grade science.
Sweet. Ms. Papernick.
Hello, I am Ms. Papernick. I teach 3rd grade advocacy, 3rd grade language arts, 4th grade math, and 4th grade science.
Hi. Oh. Sorry, we're having some technological difficulties here. Give us 1 second. Okay, I'm Miss MB. I teach a 4th grade advocacy class, and then everything else I have 3rd grade.
Okay, sweet. We're going to talk a little bit about PBIS and RISE, which we do in all of Westgate. So for those of you who have been at Westgate before, you're familiar with it. It has not changed, but for those of you who are new, PBIS is our positive behavior interventions and supports. We do this by showing RISE every day in the school, which stands for respect, integrity, safety, and empathy. We talk about RISE in the classroom, in our different academic subjects, as well as in the students' social lives, in the bathrooms, in the halls, and just in their life outside of school, because showing RISE is incredibly important in all aspects of our lives. As you can see on the presentation, there is a little slip that says RISE recognition, and throughout the year, your student is going to receive a slip from their advocacy teacher or any of their academic teachers, or really any adult in the building that sees them showing RISE. So an example of this could be if a student spilled all of their food on the ground and another student goes and helps them pick it up without even being asked. That's a great example of RISE, and they could get a slip for that. We try and praise positive interactions like this in our school to support being there for each other and having a big community. So now we're going to move into the academics. We're going to start with language arts. We're going to go in the order in which our schedules go. So in the beginning of the day, we start in advocacy, then we transition to language arts, then math, and then either science or social studies in the afternoon. So we're going to transition into 3rd grade language arts. Miss MB, go ahead.
Hi. Oh, hold on. Okay. So in 3rd grade language arts, 3rd graders are developing stronger reading comprehension and understanding skills. So they're getting really good at reading for understanding, going back into text to find answers, thinking deeply about characters, motivation, and using context clues, as well as developing some stronger skills with parts of speech and writing. So those are the main focuses for language arts in 3rd grade. Did that work? Okay. Everyone can see slide 6? No? Yes. Okay, great. All right. So some things that we can do to support our 3rd graders at home with language arts is to make sure that 30 minutes of reading is happening every night. We don't assign homework, but this is something that we all agree as a team is really important for students to be successful readers. Another thing, if students are struggling with writing, or even if they're not, frankly, they should be writing at home sometimes. So having them write about what they're reading and thinking about sort of where 3rd grade is sort of that year where their writing skills sort of come to meet up with their reading skills. And that's something we're really working to develop right now. So having students read for 30 minutes and then write just 3 sentences about what did you read about today, or what do you think will happen next in your book. Or if it's really been a struggle, something I've recommended in the past with writing is to make it a big party. So like reading a book that's long, that at the end there's a movie and you can have a pizza party and a popcorn party and a pajama night, and it's so fun, can help with getting that writing to come through for kids. And then as they're reading and writing, asking questions that require them to explain and prove what they know. So not just, how do you think this character's feeling? Oh, they're sad. How do you know they're sad? You have to prove it. So that's what we're working on right now, and that's how you can help with that at home. Oh, nope. Miss Papernick, do you want to build on to that?
Yes. So specifically for my class, we do spelling.
You're muted.
Oh, I'm muted? Am I muted? Okay, cool. All right. So a lot of our reading is based around obviously comprehension of reading. So something that I do like to suggest for parents to help with comprehension, if their kids maybe don't like to read, is to watch TV shows or movies and then talk to them about them after you are done watching them, because that is helping them also build their comprehension in reading, even if they're not realizing it because they're thinking they're watching a TV show or a movie. And you can just ask them what it was about, who was in it, where did it take place. So just any type of questions that you might ask them. If they read a book, you could also do the same with movies or TV shows. Listening to books will also help on YouTube, or any type of audiobooks will also help with their reading comprehension, and then they'll be able to hear fluency and how fluent readers read and can put that into their own reading.
Okay, we're going to move on to 4th grade language arts. I teach 4th grade language arts, and so does Mrs. King. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do in quarter 1 and 2, and Ms. King's going to talk about how we round out the year. So right now we are starting the year with the slice of life personal narratives, where students really show us their voice while they're writing. It's really cool. It's a great way to get the year started, get the love for writing up and going, and we learned so much about the students' personalities through their writing and their experience in telling their own life stories. Throughout the year, Ms. King and I will also be reading students books. Currently, my class is reading Save Me a Seat, and Ms. King's class is reading...
We're reading the book Ugly.
And they're reading the book Ugly. Both fantastic books that have really important messages that help with social emotional learning, as well as their comprehension skills. And throughout the year, we'll be reading various books, and then the students will also be reading books on their own just to further their understanding and love for reading. Throughout the first quarter too, we talk about different reading strategies that we do use throughout the year. So we spend the first quarter kind of going over the basics reading strategies and writing strategies that they will need in all of the other quarters. So that will include stuff like inferring, questioning, synthesizing, making connections in their reading and their writing, which will transition us into quarter 2, where we will be practicing using reading strategies to do research on internet-based topics, talking about internet safety, and pushing us into expository and informational writing based on research. This is a really awesome time too, because you get to not only kids get to write about what they're interested in, but they get to practice researching, which is a skill that they need in all of their lives. And they get really, really good at it, and they get really into their different topics. We've had kids write about dogs. We've had kids write about firemen, different countries. There's so many things that they can explore, and it's really, really fun topics to write about. And also to put out there too, throughout the year, although it is not listed in our quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4 topics, we do throughout the year go over basic grammar, sentence structure, punctuation, to make sure that we are good and ready to go into the 5th grade.
Awesome. I'll pick up on quarter 3. So quarter 3 is when the fun really starts, and we begin talking about perspective and supporting our opinions and ideas. And part of that is also getting to know the other side, because of course you can't support your own side until you have an idea of like how it connects to the other side, or the other point of view. So with that comes like some debate and kind of some passion and emotion. So we'll get some practice kind of figuring out how to overcome conflict and different perspectives when it comes to writing and presenting. So that'll be a good time in quarter three. Definitely an area for growth for everyone because we're all passionate about things. I know I'm a stickler for things and I get super stubborn. So it's always something I need refreshed on myself. And then quarter four, we're moving into, again, kind of gathering evidence, kind of building that ability to support ideas and how to speak to others. And this ties really well in to our Night of the Notables. So we'll be doing some kind of pair research and pair writing when it comes to that to support that social studies standard and idea because it's such an impactful project. So it kind of, fourth quarter, we're kind of combining all our skills, persuasion, research-based, gathering evidence, learning how to speak and present, and using that evidence when we talk about books and discussions. And part of that is coming to critiquing. How do we critique others? How do we critique writers themselves, like professional writers? And how do we critique ourselves? And kind of that self-reflection of how we're doing. So it kind of builds all together, which is really nicely done. So sorry, I talked fast.
We are now going to transition into math. Typically between language arts and math, we have we do a 15-minute movement break to get our bodies out, get our squirms out, get ready to prepare our minds to do some hard math problems. So we're going to move into third grade math with Miss Emby and Miss Papernick. Oh, sorry, Miss Emby and Miss Kang. No, third grade math. I forgot about myself. I'm so sorry. With myself. I, for some reason, thought we were talking about something else. Anyways, third grade math standards. So at the end of the year, we want to be able to move up into fourth grade with the ability to know fact families in addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Use these facts in an equation and solve some two-step word problems. Word problems will be heavy throughout the entire units. We use a curriculum called Big Ideas. Big Ideas also for third grade and fourth grade, we are getting up and running right now our online version, which will not typically be used in school, but is a great resource for if your student is out with COVID, has a family emergency or anything. It is a really great way to stay up to date and practice at home so that although they might be missing the in-class instruction, they will be caught up on content. It is fantastic. We're getting used to using it. We're practicing it a little bit in schools in the next coming weeks so that if they do have to use it at home, they will get to it. I'm going to briefly talk about the first few chapters of third grade math, and then I'm going to pass it over to Miss Emby. For some reason, I forgot that I teach math. So right now, we started the year with kind of a basic review of what we did in second grade. A lot of times in the summer, we're not doing as much schoolwork, not doing as much math, so we like to do a review to make sure that we are back up to where we need to be, or figure out some gaps in learning that we want to cover so that we are able to get to those third grade standards and teach what we need to teach. So we started the year with that, and we're going to transition now into understanding basic multiplication and division. We go through different strategies. All of our brains work differently. We all learn differently, so it's really important to learn multiple ways to do certain problems. It helps us in geometry. It helps us later in life. We don't even realize we're using all those strategies when we actually are. After we move out of multiplication, we transition into division and talking about some facts and strategies, patterns that we can use as we move into a little bit more difficult problems. Right here we have area. We will be teaching perimeter directly after area. The reason why it's not stated right there is because it is a later chapter in the book, but we believe that teaching area and perimeter should be right next to each other. After we go into area, we move into, and perimeter, we move into rounding and estimating numbers, addition and subtraction with double digit, triple digit, and so on, addition and subtraction. And transitioning then into fractions. We talk a lot about how in third and fourth grade math, it is kind of the basis of our understanding of math in general. So even if you don't go and have a career where you do math every single day, you use your third and fourth grade skills in your everyday life when you go and get gas, when you go to the grocery store, when you buy clothes, when you're having a conversation with your friends. when you split cookies in the lunchroom. Like you always use 3rd and 4th grade math. So we talk about these basics and how everything has a real world application, which can be sometimes hard to grasp in with math, but right now it's really important that we talk about how important 3rd and 4th grade math is and get them in how it so much involves their true lives outside of school. Ms. Emby is going to pick up from here.
All right. Oh. Okay, from there we're going to move on to understanding fractions, how to compare them, how to think about equal fractions, and how we can split up things in different ways using fractions. Understanding time, liquid volume, and mass. Classifying two-dimensional shapes, representing and interpreting data, so making graphs, understanding how to read graphs, and thinking about using graphs in our real lives. And then this is the chapter that should have been further back, but it's just not how they made this curriculum. So this perimeter chapter will actually be taught earlier. And in the math class that I have, after looking at peer assessments, we're starting with second grade math standards to review. We haven't moved through this yet, and we won't until we have a more solid understanding of some second grade math skills. So if your student is in my class, you can email me and I can send you some resources to help them at home, because we do need to be working at home at this point on their math skills.
All right, I'm gonna go.
Okay, you're gonna go.
All right, so 4th grade math is me and Miss Papernick. So just kind of a big overview of where 4th grade math is going to end at the end of the year is by the end of 4th grade, we want students to know their math facts. So addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. These basic math facts are the building blocks to making math reachable in all other grades and beyond. In higher education or in trade school or wherever life takes them. So we are pushing math facts hard. We've always appreciate parents' help with that. Flashcards, as tedious as they may sound, they do a huge impact. That repetition really does make it accessible to kids. So we want those math facts in under like 6 seconds. That's like memory knowledge right there. As far as other content, students will learn how to multiply and divide numbers with skill, multi-digits. So we're talking about bigger numbers. And a big part of our math standards for 4th grade are fractions. So a lot of our time will be spent with mixed numbers and fractions and what to do with them, add, subtract, even getting into multiply and maybe even division. Of course, we're building on the building blocks when it comes to geometry. So going deeper in perimeter and area, how to apply them on a bigger scale, with bigger numbers, with bigger relation to real world problems. And then of course, angles are in there as well. So that's kind of the general overview. And as far as like chapter breakdown, we start like Miss Rosenblatt said, we start kind of reviewing the basic 3rd grade strategies. So you'll kind of see some connection to like chapter 4 when we're talking about place value and adding and subtracting multi-digit numbers. So we're kind of starting with the base foundation of what are numbers, what are their values, kind of baby stepping our way back into that mathematical thinking and processing. From there, we go on to jumping right into multiplication. So talking about multiplying 1-digit numbers and 2-digit numbers. I'll do one more. And so then chapter 5, we get into division. This is like big step division, so multi-digit division by 1 digit. And then we get into our factors. So kind of breaking down that multiplication process, like what are factors, what are multiples, how can we see those math patterns to make it easier to solve even mentally those big problems. And then we jump into the big one, fractions. So understanding what fractions are, how they can be equal, how we can compare them, and then getting into the nitty gritty of adding and subtracting them. And then I'll let Miss Papernick take over for the rest of the year.
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah, okay, cool. So for chapter 9, we're gonna go into multiplying whole numbers and fractions. Chapter 10, relating fractions and decimals. So in that, place value is very important, knowing the difference between regular place value and then going into decimal place value and understanding how a fraction can be put into a decimal. In Chapter 11, we're going to work on understanding measurement and equivalence, so length, mass, and capacity in metric units. Chapter 12, we're going to use perimeter and area formula, so we're going to dig a little bit deeper into perimeter and area than they would in 3rd grade and kind of expand their knowledge on that. Chapter 13, identifying and drawing lines and angles. And Chapter 14, identifying symmetry and 2-dimensional shapes. So we're just going to kind of get into the basis of geometry and shapes to help them as they grow in their math.
And one more thing I'm going to add about math is something that we do called the workshop model, which we try to incorporate at least once per week, which is a little bit different than just using our curriculum. Instead, it gets kids more involved and it delves into deeper thinking. They'll get 1 or 2 problems and they'll start with related to what unit that they're on, and they will start by thinking on their own, then expanding their ideas with a partner, and then really working on showing their work and being able to do it numerically as well as with their words, writing it out. Because that, as we talked about in our classes, how being able to explain to someone and show someone how you can do something shows how much you've mastered it. So we really, really like to focus on it, and it breaks up our math curriculum a little bit, makes it something exciting to look forward to. Now we are going to transition into social studies. Before we break down what we talk about in 3rd grade social studies and 4th grade social studies, and I promise I'll get the teachers right this time, we do something with all of the grades called Night of the Notables. It looks a little bit different in each grade, and we will give you a lot more information come quarter 4 when we will be doing Night of the Notables. But this looks a little bit something like students will choose a person who has made and research a person who has made a significant or large contribution to society. 3rd graders are going to choose someone who has made this huge contribution from anywhere in the United States, because that relates more to what they're doing in social studies throughout the year. And 4th graders, since we are fully focused on just all things Colorado, they will just be choosing someone who has a significant impact on society from Colorado, like Tim Allen, who was born in Denver. Fun fact. What this will entail will be a little bit coupled with our language arts unit, as Ms. King mentioned earlier. The students will be not only researching, learning about internet safety, how to properly research, which again helps them with all other aspects of their lives and as they bump up into higher grades, but they will also be creating biographies and kind of getting like really involved and diving deep into these people's lives. These presentations will happen on the last day of the school year. Again, we'll go more into it, but students will have an opportunity to create trifolds, PowerPoints, and if they want to, even dress up as their person. So we're going to get a little bit into 3rd grade social studies, which is just Miss MB. So go ahead, Miss MB.
Hello. Okay, so I'm really excited. I love teaching social studies. I think it's really fun. We have been so far working this month on one of the standards, so I'll go over the topics and I'll talk about what we've been doing. So civics, economics, geography, and history are the overarching topics that we'll focus on in social studies this year. We have started out our year with geography. If you haven't seen a cube come home, they have all been making a cube of a state, so we have all 50 states represented, and I meant to bring one to show you, but I didn't. So just imagine that a 3rd grader cut out a cube and then tried to tape it together, and that's what they look like. They were actually very cute, but it was a whole array of challenges that we faced with the cubes. But we learned some perseverance, we practiced some resilience, and everyone made a cube. So after we're done with geography, right now we're focusing on the United States. We'll be doing just a tiny bit of world geography. We're spending a little time next week talking about culture, because I think it's important to have an understanding of culture as we move into talking about history. And then I'm going to smush the rest of them together. So we're going to start talking about history and incorporate economics and civics throughout the timeline of the United States history, which is the primary focus of 3rd grade. And now it is Ms. Rosenblatt's turn.
So in 4th grade social studies, as I mentioned earlier, we just talk about Colorado. So I'm the only 4th grade social studies teacher, just how Ms. MB is the only 3rd grade social studies teacher. So anyone in 4th grade is going to have me. We are starting the year off with talking about geography of Colorado. Right now we're talking about different regions. I shared with some of the parents that were in here earlier how we're talking about how Colorado is the centennial state, which means that it was created 100 years after the birth of the United States itself, which obviously begs the question, when did the United States become a state or a country? Into which we got many answers of 1980. So that was pretty entertaining. We will be talking a little bit more about dates and like timelines as the year goes on. So hopefully there won't be too many beliefs that the United States became a country in 1980. But it's a fun little thing that happened earlier this year that I thought I could share. As we transition out of geography, just the basics of regions, the different regions, the 4 different major regions in Colorado, rivers, mountains, all of our land, we move into economics and civics. And like Ms. MB, we kind of smush those other ones together and they're kind of fluid throughout the year, which way we go. We talk a lot about the history of Colorado, the native tribes that are here and colonizers coming in and taking native tribes' land. We talk a lot about how that relates to current issues in our country and current issues in Colorado with the destruction of native land. And something that we also do in 4th grade is what I like to call current event or moment in history Fridays, which is almost every Friday. I don't say every Friday in case it doesn't happen. But what that'll look like is every Friday we'll take a little bit of a pause from what we are learning in school or learning in our units, and we'll talk about a current event or a moment in history. So there's a great website. We can give you your students' logins. It's called Newsella. It takes current events and it puts them into the Lexile level of 3rd and 4th graders or whatever reading level the kids are at. So if there's a kid in one class who reads at a 3rd grade level and there's a kid that reads at a 6th grade level, they can get the exact same content just at a level that they of reading that they can completely understand. So they're all getting the same thing just at a level that works for them. So we use Newsella to find out what current events are going on in our lives, and then also we talk about moments in histories. Like last Friday, we talked about the women's suffragette movement, which is really great. You hear them asking questions about how that affects Colorado and other things along those lines. So social studies this year in 4th grade and 3rd grade really focuses on things that are important to the students, their lives, their everyday lives, and how it affects them. So it's very engaging. We are now going to move into science with 3rd grade with Ms. King and 4th grade with Ms. Papernick. So we're going to start with Ms. King. Go ahead.
All right. So science, of course, has 3 big over branches: physical, life, and earth science. Our goal this year is to bring back like a science fair, a passion project science fair where kids can be their own scientists and explore the world around them in a passion that they find. So that will be coming. We're still in the process of figuring out how and what we want that to look like. But both 3rd and 4th will be doing kind of like a science fair project where these kids can explore their own scientific passions and questions. So that will be coming your way when we have it finalized. So as far as 3rd grade science goes, for physical science, which is where we're starting our year, we're starting with first matter, discussing how matter is what makes up everything. We're pieces of little things that come together to take up the space around us, and that is matter, the space you take up. And so from that, we transitioned into force and interaction. So this first physical science unit, the way our science lessons are structured is we do a lot of building knowledge. So with that, it's sometimes videos. A lot of the time it's little passages that we read. And of course, I want to make that accessible to all readers because in science, we're not grading on reading ability, but on understanding the content. So a lot of the time that reading can look like teacher-led, and then they underline and we practice that close reading skills from literacy. Sometimes it's group discussions where we dissect the information and talk about it as a group before we move on to our experiments. So with physical science, our structure has been a lot of here's the information from video, from articles, and then we talk about it, and then we do an experiment to really see it. So it's been fun to do those force and interaction kind of experiments. So they've done, when we talked about balanced and unbalanced forces, we kind of demonstrated with a tug of war, and we did an experiment with tug of war, and we went outside and did tug of war, and we talked about when no one wins, when both sides are really, really strong and they have the same force, that's a balanced force. So there's no motion, there's no movement. And when unbalanced, like teacher versus students, which they really loved, they saw very clear unbalance as they dragged me across the field because I am not strong at all. So we had a good time kind of experimenting. So that's kind of how our physical lessons will be. We'll do a lot of gaining information first, and then an experiment to see that information that we did in action. So with gravity, we're going to be dropping things and seeing what happens this upcoming lesson. From there, we've transitioned to life science. And this is actually a lot of our standards this year for third grade. We're going to get down and deep with traits in both animals and plants. We're just going to stick to animals and plants. We're not going to go into human. But we're going to talk about physical traits, inherited traits. We're going to talk about their ecosystems and their environment and their habitats and how that affects their evolution and their change over time. We're going to get into why some animals travel in packs and like live in groups and why others don't. And we're really going to dissect those animals in that life cycle that happens naturally in the world. And use our animals that we have here at Westgate. I mean, we have chickens and cats and goats and bees and all of that. So they'll get down and dirty and kind of figure out all that's going on with this life around them and kind of understand it a little better. So that's kind of our big goal for second and third quarter is that life science. So it will be a lot of content that they'll be researching. It will be a little thicker of trying to get the information, but we'll do some really cool projects when it comes to like animals, which will be really fun. And then of course, fourth quarter, we end the year with a bang. We're going to be talking about the earth and the natural disasters, specifically natural hazards that happen that we don't control, but that just happen just because the earth is the earth. So wildfires, blizzards, hurricanes, tornadoes, and all those fun things that kids are really drawn to. So we're going to do a lot of experiments again, just seeing those things in action. And we're going to end the year with a big project, a big kind of research into how can we take all that knowledge and all that things, all that destruction that we see naturally happen, and how can we be real life scientists and problem solvers, and how can we create kind of a self-defense to minimize those consequences because of those natural disasters. So how can we protect our family as much as we can from a wildfire? What are some solutions, some problem-solving things we could do to try and limit that impact on our family and us, which hopefully we never need, but it's a good problem-solving practice. So we have a lot to cover this year in third grade, but a lot of our topics are very engaging. I'm really excited for your kids to be on this journey with science. So, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Peppernick, right? Yes, Ms. Peppernick, fourth grade.
All right. So for fourth grade science, I am going a little backwards. I'm starting off with earth science. So we're going to talk about the history of the planet Earth. We talked about Earth systems today. We're talking about the structure of Earth. We're also talking about natural hazards in there and weathering, the different kinds of weathering we're going to be learning about. We're also going to be learning a lot about the rock cycle and fossils and how fossils are formed. And hopefully we can create our own fossils in a nice, fun science experiment. Our next one that we're going to go into is life science. So that's going to be plant and animal structures and processes. So it's going to talk about all the different traits that animals have and how they help them survive in their habitats, function of plants, and how that relates to our environment and how that also helps with animals and everything like that. And then we go into our physical science, which is going to be energy, waves, light, and information. So we're going to talk about what energy is, potential and kinetic energy, energy transfers, the different forms of energy, how can energy be transformed in different ways, and talk about renewable energy. My goal for this year for science is to try and go out as much as we can and relate that to things that are happening in our school and in our personal lives, because that is a great connection for kids to have, and it helps them grasp onto the concepts a little bit better, I think. We're also going to be talking about waves in our last unit. We're going to be talking about the types of waves. We're going to be describing waves, talking about sounds, pitch and volume, sound and matter, how we hear and how different pitches, how certain animals or people can hear certain pitches and how we can't. So I'm very excited about that.
Awesome. Okay, before we get into any questions or comments, we wanted to go over a little bit about what we do in advocacy as well as the different resources that we use in school. I'm going to talk a little bit, and then if anyone else wants to join in, feel free. We use a lot of great resources throughout our different subjects. One major one that we all use is EPIC. So after I'm finished sharing all of these, if you want to reach out to your advocacy teacher or reach out to your student-specific literacy, math, or science or social studies teacher to get these logins, we will for sure give them out so you guys can use them at home. So EPIC is basically a online library that gives students the opportunity to read any book that they want that we don't have in person. It does read to me's, it does educational videos. It is really, really awesome. It's fantastic. We use it in literacy, and I also use it in social studies to assign books about Colorado and different regions. Things along those lines. We use something also called Newsella, as I mentioned briefly, for social studies. In a lot of our subjects, it also works for science and language arts. We use ReadWorks, which is along the lines of Newsella, more or less pretty similar. Studies Weekly, which is sometimes used a little bit in social studies. It's an online resource that has articles that also and read to me's and videos, educational videos for students. We use BrainPop a lot of the times for science or for social studies. We also use A to Z vocabulary. I use A to Z vocabulary in my class as well as typing club. If you want more information about those and you are in my language arts class, shoot me an email and we can talk about that. Does anyone want to add any other resources that we use? I think we're good right now. We did just get access to Generation Genius, so I'm not sure how we're going to be using that within science, but it is a really great resource that we could potentially use in the future. It's kind of like Bill Nye the Science Guy, just for this generation. Advocacy, which we typically do at the beginning of the day. We wanted to make sure we got all of our core content, academics in, but we have a good amount of time, so we have a nice amount of time to talk about advocacy right now. 1 second. So in advocacy is where we speak the most about RISE in our social emotional learning as well as in our academics. So advocacy focuses on the fact that whatever's happening outside of the classroom, outside of school, does not get left on the doorstep, and your whole entire life changes when you get to school. If you don't get enough sleep, you don't get enough food, you got in a fight with your mom before you got to school, that is all going to affect your ability to learn throughout the day. So we take the first 30 minutes of every school day to just kind of focus in on ourselves and then talk about a really important social emotional topic. This month, as we went over at the beginning, is about RISE. So we talk about showing respect, integrity, safety, and empathy in our lives throughout the school, and kind of get everyone situated within the Westgate community for those who hadn't been here before or for those who have taken a summer off. Next month, we are going to be focusing a lot on bullying, what bullying is, specifically defining what bullying is, distinguishing it between someone saying an unkind word to you, talking about power dynamics along those lines. We'll talk about how to stand up for yourself, how to stand up for your buddies, different resources that you use, how to talk to Ms. Kinslow, our school guidance counselor, along those lines as well. It's a really great way for us as teachers to connect with our students on a way that is not focused on teaching them a core academic subject. It helps build relationships between the students, and it gives them a time to reflect on everything that's going on and get them ready throughout the day. Our goal in our 3-4 pod and throughout all of Westgate is to create a really safe and welcoming environment for all students, and this is what we cultivate in our advocacy classes. And so your students move around throughout the day, but they always know that they have a home in their advocacy if needed, which is really important and something that we really are proud of in our 3rd and 4th grade pod, creating a really, really strong community. It's also helpful that a lot of students like travel in the pods together, so they get used to it, and we have it consistent throughout all of Westgate. We all do advocacy in all grades, so it's something to look forward to as they get older and to keep within our schedules. That being said, advocacy is in the morning, and we do spend one day of the week. We will start spending one day of the week in advocacy on service learning. Miss Charlie is our new environmental education coordinator. And so once we start to figure out a little bit more about how each of our advocacy classes is going to do a service learning project, we will get out to you guys and tell you more. But the general aspect of it is looking at how we can help our community, give back to our community, and just also learn about the environment and the world around us. Last year, my class raised a bunch of baby chicks from an incubator, which are now living on our property, which is really cool. Hopefully something we will get to do again this year. But it really brings like real life examples into the classroom and just gets them talking about the world, which is pretty cool. I'm going to open it up to any questions or comments. Please don't unmute yourself and start talking. Yep, exactly what Ms. Kang said. Put them there. You can raise your hand on the app. There's a little button you can press under reactions. But yeah, go ahead. I'm going to put up just our names so you can look at to see what class your kid has. And Ms. Pappernick brings up a great point. If your kid has me for math, do not email your advocacy teacher. She will not be able to give you answers. She's just going to direct you to me. 3rd grade math. Here we go. Let's see. Okay, we just had a question asking, do you recommend parents checking weekly on IC for grades and assignments? That's really up to you. We will be updating our ICs weekly with grades and assignments. And if you are signed up for notifications, you will be getting those notified, so I don't think you'll have to check them. You can check periodically. If there are any major issues, so if there are any major concerns with grades, then you can, then the teacher will reach out to you. Ms. Kane, go ahead if you want to.
Sorry. I know, especially for me, the best way to like see what's going on would be check EdLeo. Those tend to have more up to date. I mean, it takes us, I know I'm a mom, so like I grade when I can, where I can. So it might take me like a week to grade something. So EdLeo is a good way to like know what's happening right now. And then grades are usually about a week behind for me. I can't speak for the rest of 3-4, but they're usually about a week lag when I post my grades. So.
We just got a question about what EdLeo is, and I'm going to answer that and then talk a little bit about our grading system. EdLeo, we all sent out an email at the beginning of the year. EdLeo is just our Westgate page. It is where we will update for all of our classes, advocacy, language arts, math, social studies, and science, what is going on in the week. And if you subscribe to those emails, you'll stay up to date on what the students will be learning. Therefore, if you're out, you'll know what you're missing, and just it's always good to know and easier to start conversations with your kids. If you have questions about how to subscribe to the EdLeo page, you can shoot us an email, or even where to find it. You just go to westgateschool.org, classroom or academics classroom pages 3-4, and then you'll see all of our names. But there's also was an email sent out at the beginning of the year, so if you go back in the archives, you can probably find that as well. Our grading system is a 1 through 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 and 4s are few and far between. A 1 is going to be if a student is having a complete refusal of work, no completion. These 1s are not given and not talked about. Your student will not receive a 1 without explanation and without talking to a parent or guardian first. You will most likely never see those. A 2 is going to be approaching grade level. So what this means is that the student is almost there. They just still need a little bit more support from the teacher or just a little bit more practice to get at a mastery level of that subject. So what that'll look like for, could look like for triple digit addition. If they still, or sorry, let's say triple digit subtraction, if they're still struggling a little bit with carrying and borrowing, they'll still hit that 2. And once they've gotten once they've practiced more and gotten the hang of it, then that can bump up to a 3. So something that's a 2 in the first quarter can easily bump up to a 3 in the next quarter, or even later in the week. A 3 is going to look like a mastery of those grade level standards. So a complete understanding, showing that they understand what's going on, right? And this will look different for each student, but generally speaking, the standards are met by those kids. That's when you see a 3. A 4 is also not going to be as common. That will come when a student is working on the grade level above them and showing mastery at that grade level. So a 3rd grade math student who's also doing 4th grade work and showing that they are at a mastery level there. Those will also probably only come with emails from parents as well, just to let you know what your kids are working on. Hopefully that clears some things up. A lot of people think of them as like a good or bad grades, but that is not what they are at all. It's understanding the content and where you are. And it also, a 2 is not a reflection on your child. It's a reflection on what we still need to learn. So, and what we still need to practice. So if a whole class is getting 2s in addition, then we're not moving on to something else. We're working there to get to those 3s. So thank you for that question. Sorry. We are also going to be talking a little, yeah, of course. We're also going to be talking a little bit about birthday treats. I realize I just, okay. So birthday treats are going to be the same as those, same as last year if you were here. We've got a few allergies in our pod. We try to completely avoid having anything with sunflower seeds or sun butter. We've got like a very severe allergy. And then there's also kids with peanut allergies, dairy intolerances, gluten intolerances, things like that. So birthday treats always, therefore, have to be, unfortunately, cannot be homemade. They have to be individually wrapped and have a nutrition label. So something like this, we've got a big box of goldfish, although there's a nutrition label, not individually wrapped, they're all in here. So that unfortunately wouldn't be able to be used as a treat. But we've got Cheez-Its right here. These are individually wrapped with the nutrition labels on them. This could be used as a birthday treat. The nutrition label doesn't necessarily have to be on the bag, but it has to be at least on the box, so a kid with a dairy allergy doesn't accidentally eat the Cheez-It, even though it is in the name. It happens sometimes. And then if you're not sure, just email the teacher. Just say, hey, I was thinking about bringing this. I think it meets all of the standards, but I just wanted to check with you. Along those lines as well. Food related, we have a microwave. We haven't had any issues with people putting non-microwavable things in the microwave yet. So just keep sending your kids in with microwavable safe containers. We do have some paper plates and to use, but you know, we're trying to be a little bit more sustainable and trying, if you are able to bring in containers, we would prefer that. And that also brings up drinks in school, just water. Water is what we drink at lunch. You can have anything if you want, like, you know, milk or Gatorade. Sometimes kids have that, but typically that's about it. Other than lunch, we're just having water. There's a lot of spills. It can be a little bit messy sometimes, so things spill, and it's a lot harder to clean up a sticky Gatorade or a coffee than it is just a quick water spill. There were 3 spills in my classroom today, so they were nice and quick with water. I don't see any more questions, and we're getting close to 8 o'clock. And I'm sick of hearing myself talk, and I can assume you guys probably are too. So if you have any lingering thoughts that you didn't want to share in front of other people, or you think of it later today or in a few weeks, shoot us an email. We will get back to you. We are really, really excited for this year. It's already shaping up to be fantastic. We're getting some field trips in the works that we cannot wait to share. And yes, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you guys showing up. Bye.